Yeah, so good evening, everyone. Welcome to Blue Sky Citadel API training. My name is Dr. Shedende, and I'm going to be your tutor this evening. Yeah. So before we I don't know if you guys can see my screen. Are you able to see my screen? Yeah, if you can just type in the chat to say if you are able to see my screen. Yeah, let me know if you can see my screen, please. Yeah. All right, so you can see the presentation, okay, that's fine. Okay. Yeah, all right, that's fine. So yeah, okay, I'll just share my screen again, that's fine. That's fine. Okay. Yeah, so welcome to Blue Sky Citadel API trading. My name is Tokwe, and I'm going to be your tutor tonight. Basically, what we'll be doing tonight is we'll be going through what is API testing. We'll be understanding what API is, how to test API, and then try some a little hands-on on how to test the REST API. Now, just checking. Yeah. So everybody should be able to see my screen now. If you can see my screen, just type in yes in the chat messages or in the chat, whatever. I'm sharing my screen, so you should be able to see my screen. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. All right. So somebody has said yes, and that's fine. All right. So this is an introductory class to API testing. And we're going to be looking at overview of API testing with candid answers to what, when, and why we should be doing API testing and all that. So API stands for, I don't know if you guys have heard of API before. So in the chat, I want to try and make this a bit interactive as possible. So if you can just, if you know, if you have heard of API before, can you just, yeah, that's fine. Okay, so yeah, so if you have heard of API before, can you signify if you've heard of what API before is? Yeah, has anyone heard of API before? Or this is your first time of learning what API, of understanding what API is? All right, first time. Oh, all right, okay, that's fine. Okay, so that's fine. All right, so basically, so in a nutshell, let me just give you a quick scenario of what an API is. All right, so if you go to a website, if you go to a weather website, right, you'll find out that you're able to get weather forecast for different cities, different countries, and at different days of the week and of the month and all that. So that website deals with a lot of API that feeds information about weather from different cities and different locations onto that application. So basically, that's what we'll be looking at, just having an understanding of, okay, wow, okay, what that is. So another example is if you are trying to buy an airline ticket, if you're going to anywhere, you go into like google.com or Google Travels or Travel Advisor or any of these websites, and then you put your destination, the time that you want to travel and all that. And then you click on search and then it brings you a list of results. So in the background, there is something happening in the background that goes into, that looks up different APIs for different airlines and then populates the results and then gives you the cost for that particular travel. So I think that's about the simplest way I can explain what an API is. But this lesson is going to give us more insight into what it is, and we'll take it from there. Now, so looking at my screen now, we say what is API testing? API stands for Application Programming Interface. So you can see on my screen that we have another example of what API is. You can see the screen on you can see your screen. We have an ATM API. So we have two customers. They've gone to the cash machine. They've entered in a PIN. So once a PIN is entered, it is being validated. So when you enter your PIN, you put in your card, you enter your PIN, and then it sends a message to the bank. So at that particular time when you are trying to access your bank account, there's a communication between the cash machine and your bank. So that communication is through an API. So API allows communication between two different application hardware or computer programming computer components. So another good example is if you plug your mouse, a wired mouse to your laptop, that is, you're operating that wired mouse through an API. So looking at the example you have on my screen, you have when you enter your amount, the amount is approved, the communication between that physical machine and that particular backend, which you can see is through an API. So API follows a set of rules to allow and protocols to communicate with each other. So I've given you an example. I've given an example of weather, a weather forecast website. I've given an example of a travel agency. So getting your account information using Facebook and all that. So if you look at Facebook now, you find out that Facebook, when you go into Facebook, you see adverts coming into Facebook. Those are through APIs. You see news coming into Facebook from BBC, from Sporting News, all that. Those are APIs. So I think at the moment you guys should, for those who don't know what API is, they should have at least they have basic understanding of what API is from those little explanation here. Now, if you have any questions, you can post it in the chat while we go along. API can be written and used for web-based applications. So it can be used for, so web-based application is a typical website. API can be written for computer operating system. I gave you an example of where you have a wired mouse. You have your mouse that you are plugging into your USB ports on your computer. That is through an API. So you can write APIs for that. Database systems, where you have large store of data. For instance, as I explained to you previously, your ATM your validation of your ATM PIN between the ATM cash points and also the bank, verifying from the database who you are and all that, sending and exchanging information, that's an example. That is what APIs can be written for. All right, so APIs, you can say they are softwares and you can say they are not, but they are just a communication protocol between two interfaces. All right. So going back to my explanation earlier, I showed you a cash machine and your bank, right? So your bank is, your bank, where's that? Sorry, where are we? Yeah, so your bank, so it's just a communication. If you can see my cursor, it's just a communication between this is the cash point and this is your bank. In between this, so when you verify your PIN, you are talking to an API. It's just like a resource or more like a URL, right? Let's just, so for in layman's term, let's call it a URL, but it's a resource, So when you ask for money or enter an amount, you are talking through an API that says, get me my account balance and all that. And when the account has been approved, there's another API that says, between the machine and in the back end, it says dispense the amount of money required. All right. So now another logic is, for instance, we all use APIs every day. When you log into your YouTube, Facebook, Gmail, or email addresses, either from your phone, from your laptop, or anywhere, you're making use of API. So when you enter your username and password, there's a logic, the API logic kicks in, verifies your username, your password, sends it to your database. We spoke about database system, which APIs can be used for. It goes to the database does a verification check on it, sends the response back. It says, okay, this is Mr. John. Mr. John is verified, blah, 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 blah. And then you're able to access your email address or email accounts on your devices. And then in terms of, I spoke about the external apps. An example is, I spoke about the weather forecast, weather websites, forecast websites, or travel or airline purchasing systems. They can also make use of API. So let's say this is British Airways database. This is an API that serves British Airways has exposed an API logic that that exposes their travel, their airline, their travel times, the passenger information, the passenger list, or passenger capacity, the prices and all that. So British Airways has exposed this, right? Now, if any of us now wants to travel, we go to a website. I'm on my laptop. I enter. Okay, I want to go to I want to go to New York. I go to Travel Advisor because British Airways has exposed an API logic for people to for some certain website that subscribe to it to be able to see their airline information and travel information and all that. Then once I enter my details here, my travel details here, destination, country, time, and everything, the API logic kicks in, goes into the database, searches for capacity, pricing, dates, and all that, sends the response back, and then I'm able to see it on my computer. That's basically what an API does. Now, so what is API testing and why should we be using it? All right, so many companies are moving towards a concept called the microservices model for their software application. So this means that different sections of the application can have separate data stores and separate commands for interacting with the data store. So just like I explained to you, earlier. Now let's say this is so I said this is British Airways, right? So let's say this layer at the bottom here is their database layer, right? So the database layer has, let's say, so this database layer has all the pricing information for air travels, right? Now, this is another layer on top that says, okay, destination. This blue one says destination, another layer. And then this one says, what else can we get? Destination. And then this one says maybe connecting, maybe if you want to connect, if you want to British Airways, if you want to use British Airways and connect to other airlines and all that. So there are different layers of an application, or a very, very a more easy understanding can come from your e-commerce website, right? Now, this is your, let's say this is next.com or Sainsbury's.com or whatever. So let's say now this is where they store all their goods. So if you go into Sainsbury's, everything that is stock or everything that is listed on the shelf is stored here, all the, and then here we have the price. So the price, and then we have, let's say when you register with Sainsbury's, they store your user details is stored here. So you have your user accounts, all your account information is stored on this layer. In between here, we have the price, and under here, we have all the stock. So so each of them will have different APIs, all right? So once you log into your computer, you say, okay, I want to buy milk. Milk will go into this place. It will search for the different types of milk that Sainsbury's have on their website or in their store. And then each of them, it will now, once this data, this part of the database will now pull information from the pricing service. So we have the list, let's call it the listing, the stock service, the pricing service, and also the customer account service. So it will pull that information from here. Okay, what is the price of the milk that I want to buy? Once that information once that information is retrieved, then it sends the information back to your computer. Now that you have, excuse me, once you now agree that you want to buy the milk, you need to log in with your username and password. Once you log in, okay, my name is Mr. John. Mr. John now sends information to the API logic. It sends it to the account information, verifies your username and password, sends the information back, then you're on your landing page, your account information page. So once you put your stuff in the basket and everything, you want to do your payment, and you've stored So these two will work together. Communication will happen between this one, and then it will populate the web page. Also, communication about your account information, your credit card details you stored in your account profile. They all working. So you can see that it's just like one body, but with different, my head, my leg, my arms, everything working, talking to each other and saying, okay, how can we best service this customer? The head will talk to the arm. Okay, bring this pricing information, bring that account information, bring the list, stock list information. Everything works together. So that is what a microservice in a layman's term does. So and microservices rely on the use of APIs, because if you have one interface talking to another interface, they need a communication protocol. That communication protocol is called an API. That is what it is in a nutshell. Now, now one of the reasons why a lot of companies use what they called, so we've gone from API now to microservices. So microservices consumes API, makes use of API to talk to each other. So I've just explained what a service is and how they talk to each other. So microservices use APIs to communicate within each other. All right. Now, so most microservices are using APIs, which are a set of commands for how a service can be used. So they can either be APIs that use what they call REST, that makes use of something they called an HTTP request. So an example of an API is a REST API, which is called representational state transfer. And that makes use of that sends request making use of a protocol called HTTP to send and request data, to send and request data, basically. I do hope I'm making sense. There's a lot of information, but you can read more about it after the class. So as I've said before, I think I've covered this. We can use this for database software components and all that. So I think I've explained this. We have 3 layers, an application. So for those of us who are just new into software testing or into software development or software engineering, an application always have 3 layers. We have the front end, which has we have the front end, the business logic layer, and the data layer. So with the Sainsbury's analogy, which I've just explained to you, we have the data layer, which is stored at the back, where you have your account information, your pricing data, and your stock list data. So these are they live inside inside microservices. And then this is where your business logic is, and this is your front end. Your front end is what everybody sees on their computer. Behind that, there's a lot of stuff that happen. So the API layer contains the business logic layer for an application. So within the API, so many things happen. Verification of verification. So when you do a GET request, you retrieve information, you create information, you update services. So many things happen. There's also the authentication. There's so many things you can think of, that happens within the API logic. So there are different types of API. We have the SOAP, which is called the simple, which is an acronym for Simple Object Access Protocol. There's also what we have, which I mentioned earlier, the REST. It's called the Representation State Transfer, and is the mostly there's most services use what they call the REST API. Is mostly used. So one thing that we also need to know is for you to test this API, you need to understand what they actually do. There's no point, jumping to say, okay, I'm testing this API, but you don't even know what an API means. So that's why I'm taking the time to give you this explanation and give you this overview. So API, as I said to you earlier, API is just communication over a network and makes use of HTTP or HTTPS. So if you go to your website, any typical website, if you are searching for anything, if you want to if you are typing in a URL, you type in HTTP or HTTPS. So that is just the network interface. An API makes use of this as well. So web services are an API wrapped. So it's just an API that is wrapped in HTTP. So as I said to you, API makes use of HTTP network to communicate. So web services, they need a network. So if you have your pricing service, which I've explained to you in Sainsbury's, which I'm making, which is just an analogy of the bank, where your database, where your information is stored, needs a network and needs a network. However, the API that uses that web service that web services okay, so the web services needs a network. However, the API does not need a network. All websites, so because and the reason being that the API is wrapped in what they call the HTTP network. So all web services are API, but all API are not web services. So you can, as I said to you, some web services make use of some web services make use of SOAP, some web services make use of REST and all that. So that's just about that. So this also, where am I? All right, so if you look at these charts which I have here, it's just a distinction or between differentiation between the SOAP and the REST. It's a lot to take in, but what I'll say is that you can just Google them and see what are the differences between SOAP and REST. That will give you more understanding of of what they are. So I'll just go through them briefly. So SOAP is a protocol, and SOAP is and REST is an architectural style. SOAP stands for Simple Object Access Protocol. REST. So these are various API types, right? So some application make use of SOAP request, some application make use of REST request, right? Now, SOAP can't use REST because it is a protocol, but REST can make use of SOAP web services because it's a concept and can use any protocol like HTTP and SOAP. Yeah. So SOAP uses service interface to expose the business logic, while REST uses URI. So the URI is what is, I'll show you in a nutshell. In very soon, we'll be coming to what we know as we'll be coming to an understanding of what URI is, which exposes your business logic. So JAX web services is the Java API for SOAP web services, while JAX RS is the Java API for RESTful web services. SOAP defines standard to be strictly followed, but REST does not define too much standard like SOAP here. So SOAP requires more bandwidth, REST less bandwidth. So to be honest, these are things that you can they're interview questions, but it should be good for you to go through them. Just Google them, you'll find them on the internet, and then you can, try and, document them. Yeah, because most of the interviews, they ask differences between SOAP and REST. Now, before we continue, has anyone got any question? I don't just want to be talking and people are just confused or anything. So I can quickly pause and answer any question. If you have any question, just type it down, then I can just quickly respond. I'll just give 1 minute for that. If not, then I'll continue. All right, I take it that we don't have any questions. All right, so before we dive into what is API testing, now you understand what is API, and you have at least an understanding of what it is. Yeah, we need to learn a few more basics of API. So an API is made up of a set of REST requests. Is API part of automation or part of data science? API part of automation. I'm confused with that question, but I will say is that API, are you saying that can you automate API? If that's what you're saying, yes. And is API part of automation? I will say yes. because it makes use of it's a communication protocol between different interfaces which you cannot see. So it's automation or part of data science. Well, to be honest, almost everything that we do nowadays make use of API. So if it's, I hope that answers your question on data sciences. Oh, yeah. Now, an API is made up of a set of requests, REST requests. These are requests made to an application server that retrieve, delete, or manipulate data. So we've spoken about that. Now, a REST request is made up of the following parts. So you have, so when you ask for information on travel advisor about the hotels in, let's say, Manchester, yeah. Now, something happens in the back end. Yeah, that front end, which is the website you see, speak to a hidden URL behind the back end and says, all right, go to this location, get me the list of hotels in Manchester, blah, 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 and then send the information back. So within that request, right, is we'll see that I'm just giving you the foundation now. Within that URL, the hidden URL, which is part of the API or the endpoint, is called the HTTP verb. We now said that an API makes use of a network, and it makes use of the HTTP or HTTPS network. So there's a HTTP verb that describes what action should be taken. Now there's another thing that is called a uniform resource locator, URL, yeah, that defines the location of the request. So it's just like an email address, right? So that email address, so if you want to contact john@gmail.com, that is John's address at Gmail. So for instance, now if you want to get the list of hotels in Manchester, so you want to get the list of hotels in Manchester, then that address, that resource has a particular URL that defines the location of that request. So that's how it works. Now, there are some things that are called headers that provide information to the server about the request. So we'll come into that in a short while. And then there's also something that says, all right, so there's also, so we have a request body that provides further details for the request. This can sometimes be empty. So we've spoken about the verb. What do you want to do? I want to get the list of hotels in Manchester. Where am I getting my list of hotels in Manchester? This is my URL or address, where the list of hotels in Manchester is being stored. Now, what do I need to provide to retrieve that information? Those are called the headers. Do I need to pass any credentials to be able to access that request? That is what they call the body. Now, there's something called the Crud Verbs. So it's called CRUD verbs. I would say so many people ask, even telephone calls for jobs and all that, they say, oh, or job applications or job, what do they call it? Job description talks about Crud verbs. So we have a get request. So when you go to BBC weather.com or whatever, and you want to say, okay, what is the weather forecast for tomorrow? You are doing a get request. You are saying, okay, get me the weather for London on Thursday, blah blah blah, or of August. You are doing a get request, right? When you say, okay, I want to log into Facebook, right? You go to Facebook homepage, you click login, you enter your username and password. Yeah, you are doing a post request. So you are sending information to the post Facebook database to say, my name is John. This is my email and this is my password. I want to access my account. Yeah, that is a post. Now, if you are saying that I have forgotten my username and password, I have my email address to access Facebook, right? but I don't have my password. I want to update my record. Yeah. So basically, Facebook will say to you, okay, what is your email address? And then they will send you a link to that email address, and then say, okay, click on this link, type in your new password, and then it will go to the back end and then put a new record against your old record. So it will update your old username, your old password or username, and then overwrite it with a new username or password, right? Patch is also similar to that. It replaces a record with a new information, okay? And then if you want to close an account, I don't know how they do it these days, but you can delete a record. You say, okay, send a delete request. These are my, to be honest, a delete request does not need any credential. It only goes to the particular address that you want to navigate to, or a specific resource, and then removes the record from it. Yeah. So these are Crud verbs, and Mike, I think you've had sufficient information on what they do and how they operate. Now, we have an API, yeah. So before we continue, so that we just okay. Before I continue this, I'll just show you an API. 1 second. How do I? All right. So okay, let me just continue my presentation. All right. All right. So we're talking about an API URL. Yeah. Now we want to dive into what makes up an API URL. So we have the I mentioned earlier that API makes use of a network resource, and the network resource they make use of is the HTTP or HTTPS resource, right? So this is an example of an API, a RESTful API. We have the protocol, which is the HTTPS, or sometimes it might be HTTP. That is what is called a protocol. And then you have your colon and / double /, and then you have this name. So this is what is called your server path. Yeah. And then in between this org and data, there is a slash. So this slash is, after that / there's another line of data, which is called your resource path or endpoint. Yeah. And then if you now want to narrow it down to, like, for instance, this is telling us about the weather in London. If you want to query things, so I've been talking about asking for hotel prices, airline price, weather, and all that. If you now want to start delving into specific things within the URL, then you now make use of the query parameters. So different URI or URLs makes use of different forms of query parameters. Some of them accept question mark and then defines the query parameter, or what you're asking for, depending on the key and the value, so key string and value string and all that. So this is an example of, so I'll just quickly show you, let's continue. We'll come back to this. I was going to show you something. Okay, so yeah. Now, I said, so we've spoken about a URL, yeah? We've spoken about the URL. Now we want to talk about the headers. I said the headers are information you provide to the server to give you your request. So The information can be something called application. Example of content. Example include content type. So what is the format of the information provided? So if you're going to be providing information to your URL or to the endpoint or to your resource to give you answer to your request, you need to tell them, okay, I want to provide my name and my password. How am I going to provide that name and password? What is the content type? Are you going to be saying that are you going to be sending it in as a text? Are you going to be sending just raw data? Are you going to be sending what they call a JSON data? Are you going to be sending XML? So there are different types of content types that you can provide, or you can just, it can be a URL encoded data and all that. So that is something else that you need to provide and all that. So these are part of the headers, and so authorization is also something that you need to think about. For instance, for you to access some specific endpoints or APIs, you might need authorization and all that. I'm going to show you all that. So you also need to make your request verb, which can be post. So one thing that we really need to get and understand is that when you are making a GET request, if I say, okay, get me BBC, get me the weather forecast for London for the rest of this week, I don't need to provide any specific information of who I am or what blah blah blah. Or I go to a website and say, I want to travel to I want to find out if it is under both. So API testing is under both manual and automation. You can test it manually and you can test it. You can use automation. You can use automation to test it. So it falls under both. Right. So you know what? Everything I'm talking to you about now, everything I've been telling you for the last 45 minutes is what you need to understand to even do manual testing of API. If you don't know this, then you would find it hard to do a manual testing of API. So that's why I'm taking my time. It might look like I'm passing across so much information, but they're very, very important. All right, so so let's just make this simple. I'll just show you something, so that it won't be like I'm just talking and I haven't shown you something. So I'm trying to. All right, so if you look at I don't know if you can see my screen. Can you see the URL? Can you see the web page I'm showing you? Just type yes in the chat. All right. Okay. So this is an example of a free API example. Yeah. Now, I've just explained to you what a URL is, or a URI. Yeah. This is an example of what a URI is. So if you look at this one says, so this one makes use of the protocol. It makes use of the, what did I call it? The other one, server path. So this is your protocol. HTTP is your protocol. The dummy.restexample.com is your server path. Yeah. And then the next one is your resource endpoint. Yeah. And then this resource endpoint, and this is so this employee part is your query parameter. So no, to be honest, this is your resource endpoint. So from this API version 1 employees is your resource path. And by the time you want to start getting specific resources, then you now start making use of your query parameter, which is just the /1. So that's an example of, yeah. So you can see that the CRUD verbs, they're also called methods: get, post, put, delete, right? So for this particular API, it's just a dummy API. It doesn't do anything much. If you look at this one now, it says get. You get all the employee data, right? If you look at this one, another get, it says get a single employee data. Yeah. Now, if you look at this post, it says create new record in the database. So these are things I've explained to you, and I'm just trying to show you what from another perspective. So if you look at this put, update an employee record. If you look at this delete an employee record, right? So if you are deleting something, you need to specify what you are deleting. If you're updating something, you need to specify what you're updating. If you are creating something, you need to have a body. Okay, I want to create a new account. They will ask you information about the account. Depending on what the information is, you have to provide that in the body. Is Oyster Card an example of API? So to be honest, Oyster Card is definitely makes use of an API because it retrieves information from your card, sends it to a backend service. When you tap your Oyster Card on that round thing, and then it passes that. So, but everything happens in the fly. Pam, 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 so fast. Pam, just like you would. So for instance, so if I click, I'm going to show you, it's just like if I click on this get all employee data, straight away, it gives me my information, blam. That's exactly how your ATM, your Oyster card will work as well. But your Oyster card is a bit faster than this, so so that's exactly how it works. So I just clicked on this one, says, okay, go to this URL, get me all the employee data. And then I have all the, where is it? I have all this employee data, and it is in a JSON format, right? So that's exactly what it does. And if I look at the details here, so it gets all the employee. This is basically what it does for me. It goes into the backend and provides me the results. So my employee, the ID for the first employee is 1. The employee's name is Tiger Nixon. The salary is whatever. The age is 61, and the profile image is blank. So that's it. So you can do that. So yeah. So let's not. At least that gives you an understanding of what the API parts and others are. So we are talking about. I'm going to show you what. Well, to be honest, you can focus on. So I don't understand manual testing. So will it be better for a fresher to focus on other manual testing types and later progress into API testing? Yes, you can. You can focus on manual testing, but if you are saying that you are a manual tester, from my level of understanding of what a manual tester does, the manual tester is also expected to test API. Because if you are testing, if you say you're a manual tester and you go for a job, you might be asked to do API testing. You might be asked to do web testing. You might be asked to do performance testing. Even performance testing there's manual performance testing. So when you say manual testing is a broad terminology for manual testing. So do you understand where I'm coming from? If I call myself an automation tester, it's a broad name for automation. I might be requested to do. I might be. Someone might call me for a job. Even if you're a functional tester, where I work currently, I have functional testers that do API testing. They test the functionality of that API. So I know that this is quite. So what I'm trying to say to you is that don't say that, okay, API is hard. API is not hard. Not knowing something is what I consider as being hard. If you do your research into what API is, understand the basics of API, then it becomes, to be honest, sometimes API is simpler than web testing. That's the truth. So, all right. So as we continue, there's something they call the content type. So if I were you, I'll be jotting these things down: post, put, patch, headers, API. I've mentioned so many things today. Write it down, Google them, read more about them, understand more about them. So now there's something they call the body. So when you are making some specific request, right, you need to specify a request body. And part of it, so when you're making a post, put, or patch request, you need to specify what you are doing. So if you look at this example of API post, so if I go into this post, it says create a new record in the database, right? So if you look at the details, so the route is create. So the route is also the server path, yeah? The server path in our example of a URL, resource path, a server path, yeah? And then the method is post. And then you need to pass something within the body. So I want to create a new, so the homepage says that when you're doing a post request, you are creating a new resource, yeah? You are creating a new resource in the database or creating a new record or whatever. You cannot create a new record without specifying what you want to create. And that is why you make use of, you need to pass some information in the body. And then once you pass this information in the body, for this specific API, it gives you these parameters as the response body. So it gives you a JSON object, JSON body with, this, this is JSON object, name, blah, salary, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So as I said earlier, it is usually in JSON, which is called the JavaScript object notation. That's the acronym for JSON, or XML, which is the extensible markup language. So if I go to Postman, I can show you. So let me see what I have here. Okay, so let me just go through this, then I'll show you. Something, and then we'll call it a day. All right, okay, so these are just more, all right, cool. So now, when you are sending your request to when you are making a request, right? So when you ask for your username and password from Facebook, you say, okay, I want to access my account. You put in your username and password. You press, I don't know, is it send or login or whatever? It goes to the back end. It comes back. So the person who was saying, oh, okay, they want to learn manual testing. You don't need to be able to write and read code, but you should. So I'm asking, somebody's asking a question that talking about JSON or JavaScript. Do we need to be able to write and read code? You only need to be able to distinguish or differentiate between what is a JSON object, or so a JSON code from an XML, right? So if you look at my, if you look at this, what I've highlighted, sample JSON, yeah? You should be able to say, okay, this is JSON and all that. So if I Google another one, just let me sample XML. Sample XML, XML. Okay, this is not a good example. Sample XML file. Okay, so let's look at this one. So this is a sample XML, yeah? So XML is much more, so XML, is a bit complex. It's not hard, but it's a lot more, it's not as straightforward as a JSON object. JSON is much more easier to understand. So this one has different nodes. The XML, okay, so I forgot, I forgot. Yeah, it has an encoding. You have to specify a note, an opening note, a closing note, different, and then look, if you look at the nodes, this node, you have to have an opening node and a closing node for that particular particular node, and so it's just like a key value. So this node is a key, this is the value. We have if opening one, so to be honest, is a bit for beginners. I wouldn't, but I would also understand. So at least you can differentiate. If you see this, if somebody gives you this, right, this is XML, and then if somebody gives you if somebody gives you this one, 1 second. Yeah, if somebody gives you, oh gosh. And if somebody gives you this one, yeah, this one is JSON. So you can see that JSON is easier to read. There are much more complex JSON, but at least for beginners, this is easy. So the API verb seems to do the same thing as a few of the SQL commands. Can SQL and API be used? Yeah. So you can actually query. So to be honest, I would say that SQL makes use of API sometimes because, for instance, if you are given the database example, you can use, so within an API, yeah, you can use a SQL command. So where you are looking for specific, when you're making query, when you're making query parameters, when you're making a specific query, then that's where you can start using your SQL commands and all that. So there are some more complex, advanced level query parameters in API that makes use of SQL parameters to be commands to be able to query the resource. XML is similar to HTML. Well, they to be honest, they have the same format, almost like the same format, but XML carries a message. So there's a message. So if you look at, where's that one I showed you earlier? This one. Okay. So if you look at this, XML, there's an envelope. Between the envelope, it does a lot. So there's between this envelope, this note envelope and this note envelope, there's a message. It carries a message. So this is the message inside that envelope, right? So to be honest, I would say just Google the differences between where's this again? Just Google differences between. 1 second. Just Google the differences between sorry, I can't find my 1 second. I can't find my presentation anymore. Can you guys still see my screen? Can you guys see my screen? And yeah. Okay. All right. Just I'm trying to do something. So if I close this one, just bear with me 1 second. Yeah. Okay. So that's fine. So I'll just Google. To be honest, so can you see my presentation back? Can you see my presentation? Is that what you can see? Yeah, that's fine. Okay, cool. So I'll just say for that person asking for, so what the person is saying is XML similar to HTML. So I'll just say that you need to Google the differences. But from my own understanding, XML is an envelope that carries a message, a particular message within it. So that message defines what is expected of, is expected. It's just like, yeah, carries a message to an API and then gets the response back. And there are so many things you need to validate within that envelope and all that, which is specific to the API for you to be to accept your request. So API, I haven't said API is used for. Don't get API confused with databases, right? You can, and a database can be exposed. A resource within a database can be exposed with an API. All right. So API is not used to query a database. You use SQL is used to query a database. But if you're asking for a specific a database can, for you to be able to access a database, they can expose an API that talks to that database, retrieves information from it, and sends it back. All right. So don't get confused. So API, I don't know whether you joined this class earlier or not. API is used to talk, is a communication protocol between two different interfaces. So the interface can be your front end, the interface can be your back end, right? Or it can be two backends. So API can be, you can use an API for two things that are not visible. All right. So for instance, when you want to send money to someone from Barclays to Lloyd's, there's something. So when you send money to that person, something happens. You first of all open your internet account for Lloyd's. You log in, you do verification and all that. You say, I want to send money to Mr. John in Barclays. You tell Lloyd's how much you want to send. So something happens that is behind you that you are not seeing. Barclays will talk to Lloyd's will talk to Barclays about Mr. John and the account details you provided. They will do some transaction behind you that is you're not seeing. That is what API does. All right. So don't get confused. So there are so many things API does. I'm just trying to give you so many examples and simple examples so that you have an understanding of what it is. All right. So these are general. Can we just leave general? You don't need to be familiar with any programming language to test API manually. All right. So if you want to start doing the automation, that is when you now need to start talking about which programming language do you want to write your automation. Okay. But for a good starting point, when you're doing manual testing, you don't need to. Yeah. So I think after this one, I'm just going to talk about one or two more things. Then we'll call it a day because it looks like people are just getting a bit confused with what API is. Because I've spoken about a lot of things today, and whatever I've taught you today is a good starting point for you to do further research to be able to take yourself forward in learning what API testing is if you're interested. Exactly, a gateway. It's just a gateway for communication, right? Exactly. You've hit the point, nail on the nail on the head, right? That's fine. So when you're talking about, when you're sending requests, you're doing a post request. So, I showed you this one, right? I showed you, let's go back to this simple example so that we don't get people confused a lot. So, I showed you this example about this get request, yeah? Yeah. So when I click on this get request, it gives me the list of people, employees that work for that company, right? So because I'm able to view this information, yeah, it is a success. I'm getting a success. My request has been successful. So I expect to see. So I expect to have a 200 status code saying, okay, the information you requested is correct, and this is your information. So it's successful, and this is the information. Bam, 200 code, right? So these are API request code and API. They are called API. They are called status code. API status code. So if you Google it, API status or HTTP status code or whatever. So can you see? It's the same thing here. So I think if you even Google HTTP status code, you see, it's the same thing. All right, so status elements, blah, 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 is a 3D, blah, the first digit, blah, blah, blah. So it's almost similar to the same thing. So, so you see, all right, so I'm within, so if within this status code, right, you have, this is 200 is success, okay. 201 is your resource is created. 202 asynchronously created status code or whatever. That is 202. So when you start making all this, so all these ones are creation. Like this is like, they call this thing like maybe your hold on one second. So I just want to get the best name to call it. So one second, status code starting episode school starting. Yeah, yeah. So I think so. The two are there's a name they call it. I think they are creating or something or success or something. Status code. All right. So basically, all these 200 and 200, anything starting with two means that the thing is success. Either you are retrieving a request or you are creating something, success. Once you have star 18.4, anything starting with 4 is like user error. Something is happening from the user. And then anything from 500 is the server error, right? So it's just so simple. 200 is something is working well, everything is working fine. 400 is like you, the person making that request, is the one making error. Either you are sending a bad request, you don't have authorization, you've exceeded your limits, or what you are trying to find does not exist, or you are not properly validated. There's something wrong with your validation. And then when you get 500, 503, 50, whatever, then that means that you're not at fault, but the server you are trying to access is not responding properly. There's a problem with it, right? It's throwing out that error. So that's about this one. So if I were you, I would just go through all this and read it here. Now, before we just quickly do something else, now that we have learned what the mechanics of how a REST request and response work, it's now time to start testing them. The first step in testing an API is to determine what sort of REST request can be made by the API and what the limitations are for each request. So this can be done by looking at the documentation. So if you are testing an API, you need to understand what the limitations of that API are for that request. So there are some. So for instance, now you can see that on this website, they've given us the limitations and they've given us they've told us what the API can do or cannot do. They've said, you know what, this particular resource API, yeah, can do a GET request, can do a post request, put request, delete request. There are some APIs that have some specific method that they can provide. Some of them are not. Some of them are only read APIs, that meaning that you can only access information from them, but you cannot write. Yeah. So those are the kind of things. So if you are a manual tester and they've given you an API, the first question you need to ask whoever is giving you the API to test is, what are the methods this API allows? Can I read and write, or can I only read, or can I only write? Yeah. So these are the things that you need to understand. So there's something they call Swagger. It's just the documentation for API, to document API. There are other things, API documentation available. So here are some questions. So if I'm a tester and a developer has told me to test a particular API, these are the questions I would ask them, right? What is the endpoint I'm testing? Yeah. What are the verbs, API methods or verbs or Crud verbs that I can test the endpoint with? Yeah. Now, if I'm making a post request, like I've shown you here, a post request, yeah, what do I need to put in the body? So for this particular website, they say that you need to put something called name. Yeah. So if I break it down to you here, okay, I think I have it. So I'm going to stop my share and then share something for you quickly. Yeah. Yeah, just bear with me 1 second. just hold on a second. I'm trying to see. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Okay. All right, so can you see my screen now? I'm sharing my Postman. Can you see my screen? Are you able to see my Postman screen? Yeah, please just type yes if you're able to. Okay, that's fine. Cool. All right, so now this is a Postman is a tool that you can use. It is a free tool that you can use to test APIs, right? So the same thing that we were doing on that website. We went to that website called REST example, blah blah blah, um, and then 1 second, yeah. So and then we were trying to get the list of employees. So when I ran this query, right, I said it was a GET request, right? So the things I've shown you in my presentation, I've said about headers, right? So this is what the headers are. And so what we're trying to do here is just to quickly introduce you into API, so that you have an understanding. If you're going for the internship, if you want to do API, we'll delve, into more details. Well, so this is just a preamble, a quick introduction, right? These are the headers I've told you about. I talked about content type. The content type is, the format in which you are trying to send um, if you are your content, the content that you want to put in your request, right? So yeah, the content length is another header as well. The hosts, the user agents, you don't have to, to be honest, these are, I've been to an interview where they've asked me what are headers, right? So if you're able to go to an interview and say, okay, I know what content length is, content type is, user agent is, accept. So this says accept anything from this one means accept anything from anywhere. Yeah, that's what it means. So accepts anything from anywhere. Connection is keep alive, encoding and all that. So if you're able to mention this, these are header. So this is your body. In this particular request, I'm doing a GET request there. I don't need a body. Yeah. So I don't need a body, right? Because I'm doing a GET request. I don't need a body. So basically you can download Postman. Postman is a free tool. Go online, type in Google, download Postman, get that UI. So I'm going to send this to the chat. I'll send the link to the chat, the link of that dummy website. Yeah, I'll send it to the chat. You can play around with it to have more understanding. Yeah, that's the website. So you can download Postman. So if you download Postman, if you just copy the GET request, this is exactly the GET request. So if I do a send, so look at all the verbs I've told you. Yeah, get, post, put, patch, delete. We are not bothering with all those others, but we are only interested in get, post, get, post, put, patch, delete, right? So we're making a GET request, right? And then the same thing that you saw will happen now. So if I send a GET request, yep. Now, so if you look at my response, so you get, within the interface, you have your URL or URI. This is my URI, yeah. This is my method. I don't have anything to pass within my get method, but when I click send, I get my body. So my body is your request that you're sending back. So admin, can your admin answer that question? Is there someone is asking about internship questions? So can admin look into that and respond back, please? You don't need a link to read more about API. Just go and Google API just go to Google. Google will answer your question on reading more about API. So if you look, so quickly before we finish for the day. So if you look at my response, so the response. So if I just quickly flip through, stop sharing and just show you something quickly. All right, that when I sent this my response, yeah, you saw all this, yeah. When I did the response get request, okay, yeah, you got all this info. It's the same thing I'm seeing on Postman. When I do it on Postman, well, Postman just gives us a nicer view of it, right? So it's everything. So when I do my get, it's everything. You see, all records have been fetched successfully. That's the message that I get. And this is everything. Yeah. So this is JSON format. So if I want it in XML, you can see that it's a bit complex and it's not, but this is not even a proper XML because a proper XML is not like this. So HTML is more like what it presents it in such a way that it will be nice to view on the web page. And this is a text. So, and then this is auto. So auto, if you put it auto, it's a JSON request, a JSON body response. So it brings it back in JSON. So you can see that, everything I've asked for is here. I spoke about status code. So if you see what is there, it says standard response for successful HTTP requests. Yeah, that is what 200 is. So if I now go and say, okay, get me, get me. So if I now say, get me this, right? Yeah. So I want to, I'm trying to make a request that would bring an error. Yeah. So if I do that, no, so it's still getting me. Okay, let's see. I need to. So I've done the positive testing. Yeah, so that when you're doing the happy part and the negative part. Yes, I've done the positive testing. I want to do negative testing for people that want to do, for people that are talking about, even for automation and all that. So you want to, what I'm doing there is I've tested the positive one, which is the happy path that gives me 200. So I've now tried to simulate an error. So basically what I've done is that I've just gone to this URL endpoint or API, and this is the correct one, right? Which when I click send, it gives me 200, yeah? But if I want to see, okay, I'm trying to be a tester now and trying to use my testing techniques to test this URL API. So if I say, okay, this API is for employees now, if I say, if somebody mistakenly enters yeah, and then click send, I don't expect to see 200. I shouldn't see 200. I should see something else. So let us try it out. You see, it gives me 400. So going back to my presentation, I said anything that comes with the 4 is a user error because I have wrongly entered something that is not right. Yeah. So that is 400. So quickly, if I go back to the post one, yeah. So let me beautify it so that you see. So I spoke about, let me hide this for now. Yeah. Now I spoke about the post request, right? Now I spoke about the post request. So within the post request, if you look at the documentation for that website, the documentation states that, yeah, if you are doing a post request, right, you need to use this path. Yeah. We've covered that in our URL when we explained what this URL is, which is the endpoint or the API. Yeah. So it says that you need to go to this path, right? And then you need to pass in some details. It says that you need to pass in, for you to be able to do a post request to create a new record in your database, you need to be able to, yeah, pass some information, right? So now, doing the same thing on Postman, I need to go to the right resource or the right path, yeah, which is create. I need to put a post, yeah, and then what do I want to put within what do I want to create in my new record? So let's say I want to create something called blue sky here. I want to say the salary is 1,000, and I want to say the age is let's say 70. Yeah. So this is my body. Can you see that body is highlighted here? So I need to pass. So let's do something, right? Let's try and pass something. So if I take this out, right, and I say post, yeah, and I click send, let's see if it's going to work. So it doesn't do anything. So you can see that I get a 405 method not allowed. So I've said it about 3 times now. When you get a 4 something response, that means you the person controlling doing the testing is not doing something right. Yeah, if you get that error. So you can either test to see if that endpoint API will give you 200 if you do something wrong. Yeah. If this API is giving me 200, then I will say to my developer, Mr. Man, please, can you look at this API again? I'm not even posting the right thing, and it's giving me for 200. Yeah. But now this is my error. But once I put back my body, right, and I specify what I want to create, and I click send, so it's still giving me 4 or 5, but it's based on something. Okay, let me try it again. Okay, 1 second. I think I know what the issue is. So yeah. I know what the issue is. I'm now actually poking the right URL. So I need to take out this employee. Yeah. So you need to understand what your API is. You need to understand the path. Yeah. So the path to create is, for this particular one, you need to understand. So these are the questions you ask a developer if they are doing manual testing. Okay, what I'm doing to you now is manual testing. This is what I'm doing. I'm doing manual testing, but because you are new, you might not really. It's not something you can understand in one day. But I'm doing manual testing. So if I click send now, I should get a. So let us go back and see if now we have a correct API URL. Let's see if we are going to get a 200. So I don't expect to see 200, but let's see if you get 200. Okay, so that means that even this API, yeah, expects that if you don't pass anything in it, it will create a resource. It will create a user in your database or your endpoint or your resource with blank information. So I shouldn't have done that, but I didn't expect to see 200. So, but that's how it works on this one. All right. So let me just go back and say, okay. So fine. So if I send this information now, yeah, you see. So he created it. It says success, right? The name is Blue Sky. The name is blah blah blah. Salary is 1,000. Blah blah blah. I would have loved to query this ID. Yeah, but I don't want to do it because this API is not. It's just a play API. It doesn't really do much. It will not give me what I want. But let's say I want to say, okay, it is not storing. So this stuff I posted now, this new record I posted is not being stored in the database. It's only like it's been programmed to say success, but it's not stored. So let's try it out anyway. But I doubt if it's going to work. So let's go. So to get, you have to add employees back. You have to add employees back. The employee or employee, okay, employee slash. So the ID I want to query is 9785, yeah. And then when I click send, yeah, it says method not allowed. Let's see if I click one. I think one will work. So if I click one, no. So method not allowed because method not allowed because I'm not supposed to use a post. So if I change it to get, yeah, and I click send, yeah, it gets me ID number 1, right? So let me go back and say ID 79785. Let's see if it's going to work. Yeah, so it still says, yeah, success record has been fetched. The only reason why I'm saying that is because when I posted this earlier, when I posted that stuff earlier, it's, it saved it in the back end. It gives me a 200 response, but apparently it's not storing anything. So it's just, so this API is just the play API. It's not a serious one. But if you play around, just try and follow the try and follow this. Just play around. That's why I sent it to you. It's a play. It's just a play, whatever, just to introduce you into API testing. So if you follow that, and then gives you an understanding, and then just download Postman, read what API is, try and copy this. I've shown you how you can copy this into your Postman and try and do the get. Just play around with it, and then it's as simple as ABC. So I'll use the remaining 3 minutes to answer any question that you may have before we round it off for the day. So if you've got any question, so if anyone's got any question, where's the chat? Okay. Yeah. So has anyone got any question before we? Okay. So does the response show that So is there an internship for API? Admin would need to confirm back to you. Does this response show that you have tested the API? Yeah, because based on what you have on based on the description of this this endpoint, I've shown you what you would get when you hit the endpoint directly from the web. And then if you copy these employees into your Postman and you use get, and then you click send, I've showed you that one as well. I can quickly show you again. Let me just quickly show you again. So this is the get request. So if I go back to my get request, yeah. So this is my get request, get, and then this is my endpoints. Is it employees or whatever? So employees, yeah. Yeah, employees, yeah. So you can see that my body is empty now, right? So employees get send. Okay, so yeah, too many requests. So let me give you some time. It's blocking me. Yeah, okay, so employee, so the same thing that we got on the web page where it gives me everything is the 200, right? Then I've done the post as well with the body, right? So this is the post. This is the, if you look at the websites for that stuff, this is the API to do a post request. If you do post and send, yeah, that's it, right? So it gives you send successfully, blah, blah, blah. And then if you look at the, let's quickly do the put one. Bear with me 1 second. All right, so okay, so let's do delete. Yeah. So if I copy, 1 second, I'll copy and paste it on my Postman also. So if I create a new one and say, put my endpoint there, put my delete method, and then say, okay, I want to delete employee number 2, right? And I click send. I should get 200, yeah, success, yeah. Record has been deleted, right? So if I now query this, if I now go back and say, the thing is that because this is not a this is not like a serious, when it's somebody, you say somebody is a serious person. This is not a serious API. It's a play API, right? So if I say, let me go there and let me go to employees, employee. Normally, right? If I click on this one and I do, because I've deleted it and I go back and say, okay, give me that number 2, and I click send, you should say resource not found. But because this is not a serious website, a serious API, that's why it is coming back as 200. I should be getting 404. Yeah, I should be getting 404, which is not found, right? So, but this is just an introduction into API class, and yeah. So, if you've got any questions before we call it a day, we need to call it a day now. So, admin will tell you about the internship. Does this have we talked about that? Yeah, thank you. Is this part of the negative testing? So yeah, I've done the negative testing where I said, where I copied the wrong path and I tried to use a method and it's giving me 405, method not allowed. So you can do that as well. So how would you automate this test? I'll show you next week. If I do API internship, do I get to have to learn other types of testing like unit testing? So I'm not a developer, so I don't do unit testing, but I do integration and system testing. But so to be honest, integration and system testing. So for the person that was asking about manual testing, when you are doing manual testing, right? Even if you are testing, if I click on this, if you say that you are doing web testing and you're saying when I click on this, when I'm on this website, when I go to this website, when I click on this homepage, do you get when I click on this? So between them, that is more like component and system testing in between. But if you say if you want to get all the employees or something, click on this one. So it might be that while you click on this one, you are clicking on an endpoint that's not visible to you. There's a way they normally, I can't remember how they do it now. That if you inspect and you go to network or something, it should show you. I think it should show you the website or something. What have I clicked on? It should something is coming up. So to be honest, there's a way you look at, so even if you are doing web testing and all that, there's a way you, there's a way you click on these, there's a way you click on this stuff that shows you exactly, so every interaction, basically what I'm trying to say is that every interaction that you have on the website, yeah, makes use of an API. So it might just be that the API is just does a small job or a big job or something. Yeah. So that's about it on that one. Is it possible to do a combination person? Yeah. So if you are testing, if you are testing if you are testing a car, okay, you want to test if a car is, if they give you, okay, test the car, right? Now, okay, they are saying, okay, test the functionality of locking a car, right? Yeah. And they give you one key. Yeah. Now, so okay, they say okay, test the functionality of opening a car. So would you, and they give you a key. So the key would, when you put the key into the keyhole of the door and you turn it, it will open it, right? That's positive testing. That is what that key is supposed to do. Pass. But now you want to say that, okay, you know what? Okay, so this door that I'm trying to open now, if I go there and just open the door, will it work? It shouldn't work because without you inserting a key into it and turning it, that's negative testing. So for everything that you do positive, you also want to see the negative part. Okay, if I go there and just turn the knob of the door or pull the handle without putting any key there, am I expected to get the door open? No, that's negative testing. And then you just test different combinations, right? If I put my key inside without turning it and I try to open the door, will it open? If I turn my key left instead of turning it right, will it open? Those are the kind of negative testing that you do. So you just want to be sure that, you know what, the functionality is that when you put your key inside the keyhole and you turn it to your right and you pull the handle, then your door should be opened. But if you go there and then you just pull the handle without putting the key inside and the door is opening, or if you put your keyhole into the keyhole, you turn it to the left without pulling the handle, the door is opening. So this is a kind of combination that you have to get. You have to cover all those combinations to be sure that that particular functionality you're testing is tested to the best of ability, and there's enough coverage. When I mean enough coverage, you've done so many scenarios to ensure that that functionality is tested. So there should only be one thing that functionality, or maybe depending on the requirements, this is what that functionality should do. If it now does anything outside of it, then it is what is called an issue or a bug, and you have to raise it to your developer or stakeholder to say, you know what, this is an issue I found. This is against a requirement. So anything that is contrary to a requirement is an issue that has to be resolved, or whether it might be a good issue that you might add it might be added to the requirements to make the application more robust. So I think that's about it for today. Yeah. So to be honest, I think I've answered Flo's question under testing or over testing or not testing at all. I think I've answered that. So yeah. So that's about it today. You understand what API is. Next week we'll dive a little more into automation and some other manual testing. Okay. Yeah. So have a good evening, everyone. Thank you and bye-bye.